Hello everyone, Richard here at Calvin Wazoo, and I'm back on track with another video in the series Frank Zappa, one album at a time. And today we are talking about You Are What You Is. And as you can see, this copy that I have is a Japanese pressing. Quite nice with the obi. There we got the inside cover. Frank in some pastels. And then, the back cover. So this is on being a Japanese pressing. It's on the CBS label. All right, and coming through on that. So this album was released in September of 1981. And let's see, does it have it on here? It doesn't have it on here. As to, I can't remember what number I'm up to in terms of the studio releases or the official releases. But anyway, many of the songs on this release were originally intended to be in a project called Crush All Boxes. And I talked a little bit about this in my video about Tinseltown Rebellion. Now, that project was originally titled Fred Zeppelin, but then John Bonham died, so Frank decided I'd better change the title. And that's when he came up with Crush All Boxes. Now, Tinseltown Rebellion used the original cover art that was developed for that project. It also included the songs Fine Girl and Easy Meat. And then the other songs that were part of that project appear here on You Are What You Is. Now, Zappa liked the title so much, Crush All Boxes, that he decided to plan another double album release using the same title, but CBS, who was the distributor for Barking Pumpkin Records, said, no, we don't want a double LP. So then that led to the release of Ship Arriving Too Late to Save a Drowning Witch, and then some other songs appeared, I believe, on Them or Us, which we will get to those releases shortly. So let's go through with the songs on this double album. It's kind of it's a good album, but there are some songs that are just kind of and quite frankly dated to some degree. So we've got a really strong opener with the song Teenage Wind. It like rubs right up against being a cliche without quite becoming one. And it's very much, a nod to teenage nihilism and hedonism. Got kind of that shrill, voice in there with the singer singing the teenager part or whatever. It's okay. It's a good opener. But the next song, Harder Than Your Husband, is a very catchy tune. It's a country style. It's got Jimmy Carl Black doing the lead vocals, and clearly it's got the double entendre of the guy being harder than your husband, being he's going to have a harder erection, or also he's going to be much more difficult to live with than the woman's husband. But it's a better song, but it's not really a great song. Then we get to the song Doreen, which refers to a former Mouseketeer, Doreen Tracy, who became involved in the music business and worked with Frank before. Ray White does the lead vocals, just fantastic, just really, really kills it. And then you've got this like total over-the-top vamp at the end with a killer guitar solo. So Doreen is, now we're getting into some really much stronger material with this record. We kind of take a step backwards with the next song, Goblin Girl. Again, we've got more sexual double entendre going on with the lyrics of the song. It's kind of a so-so song. It's just, yeah, it just doesn't do a whole lot for me. It does quote Doreen again at the end of the song. It's just yeah, it's almost to me like a throwaway. It didn't even really need to be on the record. The next song, however, is really, really interesting. It's called Theme from the Third Movement of Sinister Footwear. And this is a guitar solo from a Palladium show in New York City on October 27th, 1978. Now, here's the cool thing about this. So the guitar solo recorded live was taken, and what Frank did is he had Steve Vai, virtuoso guitar player, transcribe that solo and then learn it. And he did. He learned everything about it, from every little scratch and clip and everything, and played it so perfectly that it made Frank laugh. Because what Frank wanted to do was overdub his solo with Steve Vai playing the solo, playing together simultaneously. But because Steve Vai learned to play it perfectly, Frank told him, "Hey, look, we need to throw a whammy bar in here in some spots or whatever to make a few little subtle changes so that when you would hear two guitars, distinct guitars that would be slightly different in some places." And then also overdubbed is you've got Ed Mann on percussion, doubling the solo as well. And then you've got a David Oker on bass clarinet doing the same thing, playing the guitar solo on bass clarinet. Now, on the Japanese pressing, it's difficult to hear the bass clarinet, and I don't know if that's because, I'd have to get, another recording of this. I have a CD release. I might give that a listen to see if I can hear the bass clarinet better on that. But because often with Japanese pressings, what they do is they reduce the bass. So they remove it or reduce it. And, that's common with a lot of Japanese pressings because of the high density living situation for most Japanese people, so they reduce the bass in their recordings so that, they're not disturbing their neighbors with a lot of bass going through the walls. And I can appreciate that. But I would like to, once I found out that there supposedly is this bass clarinet playing the guitar solo as well, I really want to be able to hear that. So yeah, I'll have to dig out my CD version of this. Now, that's side one. With side two, we have an entire side that's a suite, which has kind of been given the name The Beautiful Suite, although there is no real title to this suite. But all the songs, are kind of related to each other. And they're mostly about very self-absorbed people. And the only time this suite, The Beautiful Suite, was performed in its entirety was during the North American portion of the 1980 tour during the spring and summer. Now, during the fall portion of the tour, the song Society Pages was omitted from the suite. And then in the European portion of the tour, only the first 4 songs were played. So if you happen to catch the 1980 tour in the spring or summer of 1980, then you very well likely have heard that this entire side of this record played during the show. It opens up with Society Pages, which is, it's an okay song. It's got kind of a good rhythm and all that. Very much about a self-obsessed guy, which kind of then leads into I'm a Beautiful Guy, which is even more. Although Society Pages is kind of more about the journalism of the society page of the section of the newspaper, focusing and obsessing on personalities, blowing up people into something bigger than they really are. I'm a Beautiful Guy is really more about the very self-obsessed guy. I'm a beautiful guy, and I have given you the eye. This whole sense of entitlement that often accompanies people who are, really good looking. And then that goes into the song Beauty Knows No Pain, which is centered by this really hard guitar bass string riff. The dun, 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 is this, the song going through, and then you come back to that really strong riff. And Frank then describes in a series of very satirical lines, the pain of beauty, what people go through to become beautiful. Yeah, it's actually a pretty good song. The next song, Charlie's Enormous Mouth, is, I don't know. It's not that strong of a song. It was originally written about Carly Simon, but then it evolved into being about the perfume girl who was from the commercials for Charlie Perfume, all right? So it's more focused, the song is focused on that person who was in those commercials rather than being about Carly Simon. And then, of course, he's also got, the reference to cocaine with the nose stanzas. Zappa really ridiculed people who did cocaine. He made fun of people who used other recreational drugs, but he really saw cocaine as being really destructive, and that one in particular he would single out because he saw what it was doing to the music industry and to a lot of musicians in general. So then the song, he's sort of mocking Charlie, right? But after in the song, after he's describing Charlie's descent and death, then the song starts to ridicule her friends, who basically stood by and just watched it all happen and really didn't do anything to intervene or anything like that. So, he's kind of saying, that Charlie is stupid for what she did, and all her friends are just as stupid. Then we go into Any Downers, which again is picking up on the idea of Charlie's friends. They just as stupefied as they're looking for, downers, etc. But the song's got a really killer guitar solo. And it also kind of moves into the notion of TV, starts to bring that in, how the songs are kind of all bridged together, because television is one of Frank Zappa's favorite targets in how people watch and their brains just become dysfunctional because of what they see on television, so then the song is leading into Coneheads, or Conehead, I should say, which is an homage to the Conehead skits from Saturday Night Live. It's got a really, really delicious guitar solo. And, it's just kind of another little fun song. It's all right. The name Remulac always makes me think of a stool softener that has a similar sounding name. So that closes out side two in that particular suite. All in all, there's some good parts to it, but also it's just kind of, it's just not as strong as other material, that Frank has produced by then. But it's not really awful. So we go to side three, which starts the Meek Suite. Now, the Meek Suite is all the songs that are on side three and side four. And only once was this performed live in its entirety. And that was for the Halloween show in 1980 at the Palladium in New York. So if you were at that Halloween show, 1980, Palladium, New York, you heard the entire Meek Suite. So it starts off with You Are What You Is, the titular song. And this is musically a really great jam. It's got a great chorus. It kind of is, it's built around a lot of cliches. And, sometimes Frank would use cliches intentionally, but I don't know. I mean, I think he was just kind of lazy when it came to the lyrics. I don't know. That's just my impression. I mean, the first part of the song is he's mocking this middle-class white guy for playing the blues, how, for not coming from any kind of background from which the blues authentically developed. And then the other part is mocking a black guy who's learning how to play golf, who wants to become more white. And there, are people like this. I guess one of the things that bothers me about this song is Frank's use of the N-word just seems to be really unnecessary for what he was trying to do with the song. Plus, he makes it sound silly and childish. When he's saying the N-word, his voice gets all like weird and squeaky and that. And it's kind of like, I don't know why he was doing that. He's said many times in many different forums that, people need to get over their objection to some words because they are just words. And on a level, I agree with that. But, I also recognize that I live in a world with other people, and so that type of hubris almost just seems a bit gratuitous and unnecessary. However, Ray White singing the outro in this song is just so grand, so great. His voice just, man, he is really digging down deep in his belly and pouring out this voice. It is really, really, really quite good. Then we go into Mud Club, all right, which was a real nightclub in New York City and might even still be there. I don't know. But it was really popular in the period from 1978 to 83. And it showcased a lot of punk and new wave acts. And it was also very closely associated with the avant-garde art scene. In some things that are references to the Mud Club appear, in the song, such as, there's no signage at the entrance, so it's like not that easy to find unless you know exactly where you're going to go. Zappa played there on May 8th, 1980, and of course, the song, The Mud Club, was included in that set. There is a brief sax solo that's played by Motorhead Sherwood using a sax that had broken valves, which he just played around. There's also a reference in the song to the Fabulous Poodles, which is a new wave band that Rolling Stone magazine ridiculed for exhibiting rampant Zappaphilia. But members of the band were saying they've never met Frank Zappa. And then there's this reference in the song also to someone with a blue mohawk, which is a reference to a real person who, the guitarist Richie Stotts of the Plasmatics. Now, in the song, Frank says, or not in the song, but in some other places when he would like introduce the song at various performances, he mistakenly said it was about, the song referenced a bass player, but no, it was the guitarist Richie Stotts. And in 1977 or 78, around there, Stotts said he was in the Mud Club and he was wearing full leather gear and he had his blue mohawk, and he saw Zappa there, but they did not talk. Now, there's a reference in the song also about working the wall, which is not a Mud Club reference. This interesting little story. It refers to a bar, the Gilded Grape, which is a gay bar that Zappa went to with Terry Bozzio and Patrick O'Hearn. And they went there while the bar was having an underwear party. And for those of you who do not know what an underwear party is in a gay bar, it's when all the patrons, come in and they check all their clothes into a little bag with the coat check, except for their underwear. And then they can go out and dance on the dance floor. You don't have to remove your clothes and be in your underwear unless you want to dance. If you want to dance, you've got to dance in your underwear. So that's what an underwear party is. And also, so working the wall, Zappa is describing, how some of the guys would be standing on their hands against the wall and they would simulate having sex with one of the poles or beams that are supporting the ceiling. And then patrons in the bar would vote for their favorite wall worker by stuffing money down in their underwear. So that's what's going on with the Mud Club. It's got some cool rhythms to it and the way the song is constructed. Yeah, it's not a bad song. This is followed by The Meek Shall Inherit Nothing, in which Zappa is now ripping on all religious doctrines and how believers are just non-thinking sheep. He also rips on politicians as well. Those folks in DC, they look out for number one, and you're not number one. You're not even number two. This is a song that's kind of really created so that Zappa can pontificate to us. So it's musically, it's got some moments in there with some things kind of working, but it's just, it's Zappa doing his pontificating. It's got a good line, and when he says, "Do what you wanna, do what you will, just don't mess up your neighbor's thrill." I mean, basically that is the primary doctrine of life. Enjoy life, do what you want, but don't mess with somebody else's life. Don't interfere with their thrill. The next song then is Dumb All Over, which is probably my favorite song on the album. There are two different versions on the CD releases of this, one for the 1990 and 1995 CDs, the other on the 1998 CD. And when I say versions, I'm just talking about how the song was edited, and how long it is, etc. It's got Zappa again doing not so much, well, it's kind of pontificating, but he's also just going to the whole silly notion about my God's better than your God, and my religion is better than your religion, and the way I interpret the religion, and because you don't interpret the word of God the same way I do. I have to come and destroy you, or I have to mock you. I have to put you down. I can't let you talk because that's going against my God's will. It's just very, he's very effective the way he goes through this and describes this. And then, of course, coming to the end of the song, in which he's, noting that if we're made in God's image, then we're dumb, and we're dumb, excuse me, if we're made in God's image and we're dumb, then God is dumb and maybe even a little ugly on the side. And then it goes into this guitar solo that just really, really shreds, which is meant to be a transition to the next song, but this is also the end of side 3. But that is a really killer guitar solo on there. I'm going to read from a quote here. Let me find it here. Right. So talking about the song, Frank Zappa predicted that everything will come to an end, and it's going to be something that somebody did in the name of God, okay? Whether it's us saying that God's on our side because we're tremendous Christians and we're protecting our religion and our flag. Sound familiar? Or whether it's a Muslim saying that the infidels must die. The point is that they're going to do it in the name of something greater than themselves. But you can bet your ass they're going to do it. So the question is, what do you do with your spare time until you are a cinder? Well, and the answer is you do whatever you can that makes your particular life more beautiful, and you get involved in art. Because that's what makes things beautiful, art. Then we go into the next song, which is going to be now on side 4, which to me, side 4 is the weakest side of this entire double album. It starts off with the guitar solo from Dumb All Over, and repeating, dumb all over, a little ugly on the side. And then the Heavenly Bank account just rips on televangelists getting rich from duping their marks. All the people who think these televangelists are so great and send them all their money. You're nothing but marks, okay? These charlatans know their marks, and they know which marks are going to be giving them money, and you're just one of the marks. It also rips on the prosperity theology, which is essentially how blessed you are is reflected by your personal riches. The materialistic goods you have prove that you're blessed by God. That's this whole notion of the prosperity theology. And this is a real theology, especially among the Christian Reformed and some other Protestant denominations. Remember Betsy DeVos, okay? She comes from a Christian Reformed background and believes in that prosperity doctrine. Remember, she comes from the Amway riches. It's not really a very strong song. And the weakness, I think, in this song really comes from it being just a little too on the nose. Now, the next song, Suicide Chump. Now, apparently the phrase or the saying suicide chump is not a reference to a suicidal person, but it's to a botched attempt. So, attempt at suicide that ends with the person still living, but just really messed up, that's a suicide chump. Not the person, but the outcome. Now, this song is set to a basic 12-bar blues, and it's got a really good guitar solo. But the song, it's just, I don't know if he was intending to be funny or whatever, because it's not funny, and it's frankly a bit insensitive, and, it's sometimes, you get Frank Zappa with these musically, these great songs that he just kind of destroys with really insensitive or absurd lyrics. The next song is the same way, Jumbo Go Away. This is just another gratuitous and spiteful song. It's about a real girl that the band encountered in Kalamazoo, Michigan, who had a disproportionately large head. All right, you know, like the line, she had a head like a buffalo. That's what it's referring to, the size of her head, not that she necessarily looked like a buffalo. However, there is this really extraordinarily difficult keyboard section. So here's another case where musically we've got something really fantastic going on that just gets overshadowed and just kind of destroyed by the prurient lyrics. So this is Tommy Mars was given the music and to learn, and he saw that it was written entirely in the treble clef. All right, he says when you're a pianist and you see treble clef, you immediately think organically right hand. And I'm kind of negotiating it, but it's like the first time Frank Zappa's ever written anything up to that point that I'm saying to myself, I don't know if I really can play this. And Frank's looking at me and saying, well, a little difficult, huh, Mars? And I'm looking at it and I'm trying to play it and my left hand's in my lap. And it's like unbelievably difficult for one hand. He's seeing me struggle. He's seeing me die, and he's starting to laugh. He says, want me to play it for you? I said, quit it, Frank. I'm trying to get this, man. Don't bust my balls. And I'm practicing. Then he's starting to laugh, and he said, Mars, would you push over on the bench and let me play the damn thing? So eventually Frank does sit down and play it on the piano, and what Frank did is he placed one hand over the other, okay, like this. So, and one hand's playing just the black keys, and one hand's playing the white keys, all right? So what Tommy Mars was trying to play with one hand, that's how Frank played it. And Mars says he's like fucking Horowitz. And I dropped to my knees. I was screaming, laughing. It's a childlike technique. You just play your black keys with your right hand and your white keys with your left. And you can come up with some great licks that way too. So that's, here's this really interesting musical bit buried in this song, and you could hear it when it comes up, but all the rest of the song just kind of kills it by the time you hear it. And then it kind of goes into this swinging 60s style bopping song. I love the organ in this song. If Only She Woulda. This also has got a very killer guitar solo in it. And I'm going to also read something here about this. And the organ solo is a parody of The Doors. Well, actually, no, I don't think I'm going to read any of this part here. It's got the fun little guitar solo in it, and I love that organ. It's a nice little song. It certainly brings you back again, from the previous material, which it's not all that good. And then the closing song is Drafted Again, which this is a dated song, okay? Because it was a reaction to talk at that time, we're talking 1980, of reinstating the draft after the Soviets had invaded Afghanistan in December of 1979. So, after Vietnam, the United States got rid of the draft, but here they were, kind of talking talking about it. And so in that respects, the song is dated, but there are some interesting things going on here with the song. And, in Zappa in an interview said, but that the draft is a bad business. First of all, they're going to have to spend a lot of money just to put the machinery of the draft back together again. And then he says some interesting things, about military and the military service. He says, I think every country should have an army, but it should be composed of people who want the military life and who have an interest in being soldiers. And there are people like that in the United States. Why don't we have them in the army where they could really do some good? You want to know why? Because they have these commercials on television advertising for people to join the army, but they say this: join the army. In 4 years, you'll save enough money to go to college. You don't want an army full of people waiting to go to college. You want people who want to smash and kill. The way they should advertise for the volunteer army is to do a commercial that says, hey, how many of you guys want to kick ass? Every weekend in bars all across the United States, people beat themselves up, stab each other, shoot each other, because they've got nothing else to do. They should find a place to apply that talent. That's a very interesting notion about how the armed services should be advertising for recruits. So anyway, that's the story and my take on You Are What You Is. There are some good tracks on here. One of my favorites being Dumb All Over. I just really, really like that. But there's some other good things. But yeah, it's just not that strong of an album in comparison with the others. And many of the albums that are coming in the late 70s and into the 80s of Frank Zappa's, other than the live recordings of concerts that are put together, the material is starting to get weak. But maybe some of you out there really enjoyed this record. Leave a comment in the down under. Be sure to like and subscribe. Remember that I am also on Instagram. You can find me there. My handle as NewsDude76. That's NEWZDUDE76. And hope you are enjoying this season. And remember to pray for the people inside your head, for they won't be there when you're dead.